Hello everyone and welcome back to another Hollow Knight lore video here on the Gaming Movie Jerks. After giving a brief overview of the game's general lore, I wanted to look a bit deeper into the Pale King and the vessels. Once again, there will be Hollow Knight spoilers throughout this video and within the entire series. Alright, so there were once these higher beings called worms. I said this in a previous video, but now I will elaborate. They're basically like real-life worms in terms of appearance, in that they are very long and have no appendages. However, they are different in that they are ridiculously massive and powerful. They are said to come from lands far beyond Hallownest, and one in particular came here. Well, then he died, but also not actually, since there was an egg inside of the body that has been hatched. We know this to be the Pale King, mostly because in the Kingdom's Edge, where the carcass is, a big dude named Bardoon tells us that the worms do not die, they just transform into something else. It is also mentioned by him that they have some limited foresight ability, but considering they are all mostly extinct, this probably wasn't a very good ability. While talking to Mr. Mushroom, at one point he says, worms pull bugs into their thrall, till ages pass and kingdoms fall. Because of this, we know that it is in the worm's nature to rule over others. Here's the problem with this. There's already people living here. They all have their own ways of life and areas they stick to. These people would be the Mosskin of Greenpath, the mushrooms of the Fungal Wastes, the Mantis tribe, the Moth tribe, the bugs in Deep Nest, and the bees in the Hive. This didn't really end up being a problem at all, actually, as some of them just didn't follow the king, and others, like the mushrooms, actually quite liked the Pale King. The area also quickly saw an industrial era, during which he ordered the construction of the stagways, the tram stations, and even footpaths through most areas. One interesting thing is that the Pale King stayed away from his subjects. He built his palace under the City of Tears down in the ancient basin, where most common bugs were unlikely to travel. Although, at this point, I am sure that the elevator shaft down to the ancient basin was probably working, so it honestly probably wouldn't even be that hard. As discussed in the last video, the infection happened, and the Pale King and the White Lady made hundreds of children. I didn't get a chance to talk much about these children, the vessels. Basically, they were just literal vessels which the void then filled, creating shades. These were creatures meant to be completely voided of thought, will, and hope. They were also genderless. This isn't really important, but it is obviously pointed out by the fact that Hornet is called the gendered child. More interestingly, I don't really know how these things were supposed to be completely hollow. I mean, your character, the Knight, has the will to journey the whole kingdom and unravel the mystery, right? I guess it's debatable. Anyway, the memory scene when you get the Voidheart charm shows you climbing the abyss while other siblings are falling. Some people say that they are being thrown down into the abyss, but based on what I think the challenge was, it is more likely that they were just trying to climb up and they ended up falling down. My understanding is that the challenge was whoever made it to the top of the abyss would become the pure vessel. The lore tablet just outside of the abyss reads, "Our pure vessel has ascended," which I take to mean that he ascended by climbing out. How does this make him more hollow? I am not sure that any of them are more hollow than the others. I would speculate that the Pale King created so many because he didn't know how well they worked, but he also couldn't just choose one from so many, so he didn't choose at all. This whole ordeal was kept secret from even the highest ranking bugs. Dream-nailing Ogrim, who was one of the 5 great knights, the king's most loyal servants, says there was another, implying that he was never told that more than just the pure vessel was created. It was around this time the Pale King started using Void for other things. He created wings molds and king's molds. Somehow he also imprinted them with the will to follow and serve him. Based on the molds seen in the Pale King's workshop, it seems as though the Collector was also made here, with the same body shape with 4 arms. The creation of king's molds was apparently well known, as you can see the nailsmith making a figure of one once he goes and paints with Paintmaster Shio. Another important thing to mention is that the Pale King sealed off the abyss right after selecting the Hollow Knight, but other vessels have made it out somehow. There is the vessel in the first Hornet fight, the broken vessel, the ones hanging in Nosk's lair, and of course, the player. With the door sealed, how do they get out? Well, there has to be some hidden passageway, and I think it probably leads to Deepnest, and more specifically, Nosk's lair. It would explain why so many are trapped here. So, other than these few vessels, the story of the children pretty much ends here. I guess there is the scene when beating the radiance of all the siblings rising up with you, but that's all in the dream world, in the dream of the Hollow Knight, where everything is ridiculously complex. With their stories mostly over, we should probably finish up the Pale King's story. I should say that he and the White Lady both showed regret in what they did, but saw no other option. While the Hollow Knight was still being successful, the Pale King ordered the construction of the statue in the City of Tears and the 3 Dreamer statues in the resting grounds. When the Hollow Knight stopped working, the Pale King sealed off the City of Tears, leaving the only way back in as the city crest, which he gave to one of the great knights, Hagamol. The Pale King then disappeared to Tahiti!
Or Tahiti.
No, I'm just joking. With his entire palace, he hid it inside of the dreams of one of his king's molds, then put some type of dream barrier over him, making it so you needed the awoken dream nail to get in. At this point, the White Lady basically secluded herself in the Queen's Gardens, and the Pale King in the White Palace in the dream of a king's mold sealed by a dream barrier. Here, the king died. We aren't sure if he transformed into something else, or if he just died. The Game Theorists video is based around the speculation that the Pale King transformed into the Knight. Plenty of others have debunked this, but I'll do so too, very briefly, like in one sentence. The Knight and Pale King are in the same room in the memory scene in the Abyss. Bam! Debunked! Anyway, the Pale King probably died to the void. I say this because all the king's molds outside of the throne room are dead, with void streaks from their faces. Because the throne room itself is a lot darker than any other room in the White Palace, and because the particle effects are the same as the ones in the Abyss. I would say that because of this cause of death, the void, it is possible that he did not transform again. At this point, there isn't a whole lot more to talk about. The story pretty much ends here. Eventually, the knight becomes the king of Halnest, but that doesn't really matter, and a lot of people don't even realize it. I hope you guys enjoyed the video and are now more interested in Hollow Knight lore. I'll see you guys next time on the Game Movie Jerks.